What's up, everyone, and welcome to the Cover Zero podcast presented by Going for Two. I am your host, Jerry Wilkie, and I'm here with my two co-hosts this time. Jordan, back from his trip to LA to watch the Rams get murdered out there by the Bills, and Hassan. What's going on, guys? What's going on, Jordan?
I am shocked that I am confident enough to show my face in public, but I've come out after a long week, and here I am.
Well, not many people know you're a Rams fan until they watch this, so it's next week you got to worry. Hassan, what's going on?
I am also not feeling that great about being on camera after losing to Daniel Jones of all quarterbacks.
That's much worse.
Yeah, that's definitely worse.
Yes.
But I mean, you get to join Jordan's club this week and lose to the Bills too.
We'll see. We'll see what happens.
It'll be fun. I'm sure we're going to have a few players from each of those teams to talk about today. So we're going into week 2 of the NFL season. Episode's going to be a little different than it was last week. We actually have some waiver wire pickups, some new injuries to talk about. We'll recap Thursday night's game between the Chargers and the Chiefs. We'll talk about each of our two players that we like this week at each position for the defensive line, linebackers, and defensive backs, just like we did last week. And let's jump right into it with the news. A couple big pieces of news, some injuries from last week. Kyle Fuller suffered a torn ACL. He will be out for the season. Derek Barnett also suffered an ACL. Eagles, he will be out for the season. TJ Watt suffered a torn pec. They did throw him on IR. His expectation is about 5 to 6 weeks. I believe that was it for the major injuries, unless I'm missing any. You guys got any that I might have missed?
I did hear that TJ Watt is trying to make it back in 4 weeks if he possibly can. Like, he's trying to do his best. So it could be possibly 4 weeks, but 50-50 chance.
Yeah, so the IR is now, it's 4 weeks. They're expecting about 5 to 6, so maybe they take him, or he comes off in 4 weeks, and they maybe just burn that roster spot for the last 2 weeks before he's ready to come back or something like that. But hopefully he's back sooner than later. That defense, I mean, that defense is basically what carried them to win last week. I mean, they're definitely going to need them. They got a tough few games, and hopefully they could get out of this 6 week stretch at least at 500 if they're looking to make a postseason run this year. As far as other injuries going into the week 2, some questionables. You got Jordan Whitehead of the Jets, Cameron Curl of the Commanders. He did not play last week. DeForest Buckner of the Colts, Kenny Moore of the Colts. Those are all questionable. We'll know a little bit more tomorrow morning if you need to make any late minute swaps on those guys. Doubtful is linebacker Aziz Ojulari of the Giants. Kayvon Thibodeau still looking to make his season debut of the Giants. And then out, we know these for sure, are Shaq Leonard of the Colts. He's missing a second straight game. Denzel Perryman of the Raiders and Trayvon Morg, also of the Raiders. Any of those stick out to you? Obviously, they're not in our rankings this week, but any of those stick out to you? Do you think any of the questionables play? Do you think we see our season debut of Cameron Curl?
Yeah, I mean, I'll make 2 quick notes here. I mean, Cameron Curl is one of those under the radar names that I was keeping an eye out for in IDP formats this year, and I'm interested to see what his role is when he comes back, because I'll mention this guy later, but Derek Forrest took his place last week. And, man, I mean, he played like a dog. I mean, it's hard to put him back on the bench after how he played last week. So I'm interested to see if that allows the Commanders to take a more slow approach with bringing Curl back 100%. But he had 99 tackles last year, which is kind of under the radar, and he's only 23, so with a lot of room to improve. And I think the 2 young Giants defensive linemen, I think it's going to be fun to watch that young line grow together. Ojulari had 8 sacks last year, and he was only 21 during his rookie season. So I'm looking forward to seeing those 2 guys be able to play together for probably a long time.
It doesn't sound like we're going to be able to see them this week. They both missed last week as well. So hopefully they get out there sooner than later. Hassan, any notes on the potential outs for this week?
I got with Shaq Leonard being out. I'm going to talk about him later on in the show as well as Zaire Franklin. over for him. Played 100% of snaps. We'll talk about that later, but definitely you will see him a lot as well.
Okay.
And he played very well. So.
All right, perfect. Let's recap Thursday night's game between the Chargers and the Chiefs. One of the biggest plays in the game was on the IDP side of the ball it was a pick six that kind of changed the game. That was rookie Jalen Watson returned 99-yard pass from Justin Herbert to the house. I forgot what that made the score, but that definitely changed the game. They were obviously, if it's 99-yard touchdown, they were driving. Chargers were driving, looking to go up a little bit more. And there's some video out there about Everett kind of calling himself off the field, but they were in a hurry up offense. Not necessarily a great throw, but also maybe shouldn't have thrown that way to Everett, and kind of just turned the whole game around there. Derwin James led the Chargers in tackles with 9. J.C. Jackson made his season debut and team debut, had 6. They were all solos. There were 3 instances where the Chargers D could have came away with an interception, but they just couldn't secure the football. The one was really close, where it hit the ground, looked like it bobbled a little bit, but any one of those could have turned it around for the Chargers too, but they just couldn't hold on to the ball. Mahomes had practically a perfect game as far as taking care of the football. It felt like the Chargers brought a lot of pressure that night, but they really didn't get to Mahomes at all, and they didn't cause any turnovers. They got 1 sack on him. I mean, he's just through two games so far, he's been pretty perfect. He's been left upright, hasn't thrown a pick yet. So we know what kind of player Mahomes is, but you got to get to him. You got to put some more pressure on him. Like I said, it looked like he had a lot of pressure, but like Nick Bosa, Khalil Mack, they were 2 of the lower scoring IDPs from this game. You need those 2 guys to be your better guys on the field if you're going to try to beat Mahomes. You got any notes on this game at all?
Yeah, I actually was very intrigued coming into the matchup because I think that the Chiefs O-line last year, 2 years ago in the Super Bowl was a problem, obviously. They fixed it last year, and it's really It really started gelling towards the end of last year. So I wanted to see how Mack and Bosa were able to do on the edges against them. And what you said, there was a lot of pressures, but that 1 sack that they got, it was on the Chiefs' first drive. And that was all we heard when it came to sacks, and it seemed like, as you said, we know what kind of player Patrick Mahomes is. I mean, he's basically at 75% passing with 600 yards and 6 touchdowns in 2 games, or 7 touchdowns in 2 games, excuse me. And I would say in that Arizona game, week 1, they were up 37-7, not even 2.5 quarters in. So they could have gone, if they kept the gas on the foot, or the foot on the gas, excuse me, they would have done a lot more. But I felt like Andy Reid went very conservative last night as well. And that was on purpose to test J.C. Jackson and Derwin James, that combination together, I feel like. I know it was just announced a few hours before the game that J.C. Jackson was going to be in, but I'm sure that Reid, being Reid, coach of 2+ decades, hey, if J.C. Jackson gets thrown in here, this is what we're going to do instead. Because Derwin James said it himself, we're going to be mixing up coverages, we're going to be doing stuff that you've never seen before, and you didn't see anything deep really at all thrown by Mahomes. And as you said, just the pressure was not there, or the pressure was there, just the sacks weren't. Jordan, you got any notes on it?
Yeah, no, their offensive line is going to be something to monitor the entire year. I was kind of curious as well. The Chiefs and Mahomes had the second worst pressure rate after week 1, so it wasn't a great performance in week 1. He did get hit 5 times last night, or on Thursday night, but for the most part, they held their own, especially against a good front. On the IDP side, I'm kind of intrigued to see what Willie Gay does this year. I really liked him coming out of Mississippi State. He's been kind of quiet his first 2 years in the league. He's got 16 tackles through 2 games. Him and Nick Bolton should be a nice combo up the middle for him. So I'm interested to see if he can keep that consistency. I'm always big into you got to prove it week in and week out. 2 weeks doesn't quite do it for me. So I'm keeping my eye on it because he is very athletic. He's got a lot of talent, and I thought he was going to be a upper echelon linebacker coming into this league, and he hasn't shown it, but the talent's still there.
Yeah, speaking of Willie Gay, he led the whole game in tackles with 11, had 2 passes deflected, batted down as well. So he had a pretty nice scoring game for you guys if you had him in your lineup. Nick Bolton, 10 tackles for the Chiefs. Chris Jones had 2 sacks on Justin Herbert. And then just overall, like I said, there was quite a few between, all the names that we named. A lot of the names that we named are guys that are starting in a lot of IDP leagues. Willie Gay had 28 points in a lot of scoring leagues. Chris Jones, 26. Derwin James, 17. Drew Drinkwell and Nick Bolton, 15. L'Jarius Sneed, 15. J.C. Jackson, 12 in his debut. Asante Samuel, 10. Justin Reed, 10. And Kyle Van Noy, 10. Like I said, the only people really under double digits that you probably were starting were Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack. They still got you 9 and 7 respectively, but it's not enough. You want more from them, especially maybe get to the quarterback once or twice if you can. But yeah, overall it was a good game. Came down to the wire. That onside kick to potentially get the ball back it was a perfectly placed onside kick. Bounced out of I forgot who it was, but bounced out of his hands. Chargers had a chance at it. It would have been interesting to see Herbert go back out there in as much pain as he was and try to drive the ball 20, 30 yards and try to tie it. But great game. We've had a pair of star-studded quarterbacks on Thursday nights so far, and next week it tames down a little bit. We got Trubisky and Brissett next week, but it'll still be fun. We're still going to talk about the defenses there between Pittsburgh and Cleveland. We'll have a lot of IDPs to talk about at least. Jordan, you want to get into the waiver wire pickups that you like from this past week?
Yeah, sure. I had a few listed. Let me scroll down here real quick, but oh gosh.
Caught you off guard.
You did. You went out of order. How dare you? One guy, I mentioned him in the chat, but he was playing mostly on passing downs, but it's Dominique Robinson of the Bears. He had 1.5 sacks, 7 tackles from the outside. And for me, a big part of this, I love stats, I love numbers, I love data, but guys to me also have to pass the eye test. And there's just a certain dominance when you watch certain guys. You're like, okay, this is a guy you need to pay attention to. And it seemed like he was in the backfield almost every play. And I understand the weather conditions weren't ideal, but the 49ers have a strong offensive line. And the fact that he was able to come in and, as a rookie, be dominant in week 1 is something that I'm keeping an eye out on. I picked him up in our Dynasty League kind of as a stash right now to see what he does. So that's my defensive lineman. Linebacker, I had Cody Barton of the Seahawks being a little overshadowed by Jordan Brooks, and rightfully so. But, similar to what Jordan Brooks was to Bobby Wagner, I think that now Cody Barton can be that to Jordan Brooks. So it's a guy under the radar, is probably going to finish with over 100 tackles this year. His ownership percentage is extremely low right now. So, he's a guy you can run out. And maybe after last week, people started to grab him. But, I expect him to be very consistently putting up, 7-8 tackles a week. And, there's good value to be had there. Then my D back was Hufanga from the 49ers as well. Another rookie, but once again, he's a guy that he absolutely dominated. He was in the backfield. They moved him around quite a bit. I understand the weather conditions once again, but he was all over the field and looked great in week 1. Had double-digit tackles in his debut, and if they continue to utilize him as a weapon all across that defensive front and move him around, he'll be involved in getting tackles. They used him in some blitz packages as well. So I like when they're using a guy in his first game that creatively. That shows you the kind of confidence that they have in him. So that was my one from each position.
Yeah, I picked up Hufanga in a couple leagues, I believe. I know I got him in at least 1 or 2. But
you outbid me on him in that one league.
The one was a bid, and the other one I don't even think anybody bid for him, or I was the only one that did. But I think I got him for free in one of them. I forgot what league it was, but it was.
Wow.
I was able to grab him. I mean, you got to be. That's the downside with not really the downside, but that's the problem with playing an IDP is people just don't pay attention, and that's what we're trying to do. That's what we're trying to bring with this podcast and with our rankings and our new Twitter. Which I don't even know if I mentioned the Twitter. I actually had that in the notes. We do have a new Twitter. It's at cover zero GF2. Again, that's at cover zero GF2. That's, you got to spell out zero, ZERO. So check us out on Twitter. You'll get all of our rankings and any news that we have, and we'll retweet it and post it. But yeah, it's able to grab these kind of guys because we just got playing more competitive leagues, I guess. The leagues that we're in, the all IDP leagues that we're in, those ones are pretty competitive. But like the ones that just added IDPs to their dynasties, we got to build those ones up because we got to make those more competitive and have people fighting over these IDPs and stuff like that. Hassan, did you have any guys that you wanted to pick up on waivers?
Yeah, I thought we were gonna, like, is this with the twos basically we're going, or
no? This was just the waiver period. If you don't have any, that's fine.
I didn't get any for this week. Yeah, I did not. Apologize for that.
That's fine. We'll just have to take that out of your paycheck.
It works with me.
All right. Before we get into the next portion, which will be the twos, check out, like I said, check out the Twitter that has our rankings on it. We're not going to spend too much time on the rankings at all. For the most part, if you're in a competitive IDP league or even just a mildly competitive IDP league, most of our top 20 players in each position are guys that are rostered, are guys that you're most likely using in your lineups already. So we don't need to spend a lot of time talking about them. Because we're not going to sit here and say, hey, start Jeremy Chin when 100% of people should be starting Jeremy Chin. Or we're not going to sit here and say, hey, you should start Roquan Smith when you should be starting Roquan Smith. So if you want to check out our rankings, check it out on the Twitter. There's a few Facebook pages that they are posted to. So check those out. We each did 25 of each position. We rotate every week on who's doing what position. So check those out. But first,
I'm gonna just make one quick note about something you said, Jerry, and that's just IDPs can be your competitive advantage if you do pay attention and you stream them and play the right matchup. And I think some people are still gonna go, whatever, I don't want to pay attention to it. But I mean, I've always been competitive to where I stream kickers because I pay that close attention. Because if I can snag a few extra points, I mean, that's the difference between a win and a loss some weeks. And, I can give you a quick example of a dynasty league that you and I are in. My offensive skill players were horrendous in this one dynasty league, and I had a lot of injuries last season, but I was consistently rotating through defensive players, and I made it to the championship, honestly based alone off of those 4 or 5 IDPs that were playing because they were scoring so much. And it took me, I lost in the championship, but I honestly had no business being there. And that was really because of the competitive advantage of me being one of the only people paying attention to that. So I just want to highlight that because I think that's really important, that you don't take advantage of it while people aren't paying attention, because I think that's going to shift over the next few years, but take advantage.
And a lot of the going for two audience is based out of Twitter, and they're watching us on YouTube as well. But in the Facebook community, you don't know how many posts I see about losing or winning by less than a point. And those IDPs, if you're in an IDP league, can turn your loss to a win because you did a little bit more research on a player and you got a guy that got you 19 points from a linebacker position when the other guy is just plugging and playing guys that played last week and they're only getting 15 or something like that. But if you're in a league where it has IDPs, hopefully you're paying attention to all your positions. But if you could just put a little bit more time into the IDP portion of it, you might be able to give yourself an advantage, like Jordan said. All right. Before we move on.
Yeah, I'll make actually a quick note on that real quick, too, in reference to Jordan. Same thing for me last year. I took over a 1-12 team that had left me with Drew Brees and Philip Rivers as retired quarterbacks, and we had 27 roster spots and 7 of them IDPs, and I turned that team into a second place team. I did lose in the championship, but 1-12 to 9-5, literally just off the IDP players. So as you said, use it to your competitive advantage. It will work.
We're changing leagues one IDP at a time. All right. Before we move on to the twos, I do have to do this ad read. So you guys will guide me along the way. Do you guys know what No House Advantage is?
Tell me, Jerry.
No, you don't. No House Advantage is changing the game by offering the most dynamic fantasy sports platform available today. Play in pick'em style contests versus other people for the shot at winning $150,000 or more. Download the app, use our promo code GF2, and get a deposit match up to $25. Choose a contest, select your player props, earn points for correct picks, and climb the leaderboard for your shot to win big money every day. You can also test your skills versus the house and 20 times your entry if you hit all of your picks. Bet on up to 5-player prop over-unders or individual player matchups across every major sports league, NFL, NBA, MLB. They even got golf, MMA, NASCAR, any sport that you could think of that's going on, they got it. Again, the promo code is GF2. Use it at nohouseadvantage.com or download the app on the App Store to get first deposit match up to $25. I actually did this today. I didn't deposit any money yet, so I didn't get I did the code, but I didn't deposit any money yet. So I still have that 25 deposit match available for me. But I checked it out to kind of see what it was like. And the one contest that I looked at, they have it tiered like 10 points, 9 points, 8 points, 7 points. You click on the 10 points, and then you get to pick a player, and then you pick his prop. So you get points based on if that player hits his prop. So it's pretty cool. And so like you put your most confident one in the 10, 9, 8, and go down the list. So it's definitely a nice new unique way to play. Little different than going on to like DraftKings or FanDuel. So that's No House Advantage. You guys should definitely check that out. And yeah, you guys got any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, you and I are always messing around with different league concepts and ideas, and I feel like that fits right into this wheelhouse. So, there comes a point when you've been playing, I've been playing fantasy for 20 years now and betting in different capacities, legally and illegally, during those years. So I love unique concepts like this. So I think it's a pretty cool platform that they've built.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I had to download it. Like I said, as soon as I got the read, I had to download it, and I like it. I think I'm going to throw, if it's legal here. I'm not 100% sure if it's legal in New York, but if it is, if they accept my money and accept me to play, I think I'm going to try something this weekend on it.
Yeah, it definitely looks great, and obviously getting another platform out there to just intertwine another type of other types of contests, other types of DFS leagues, stuff like that, always is a good thing.
All right, so we'll get into our twos now. Basically, we'll each go over 2 defensive linemen, 2 linebackers, and 2 defensive backs that we like for this week that aren't necessarily in our top 25s for our rankings. Last week, me and Hassan, we were on the show together, so kind of just go over our results of last week. I would say I probably went about 50-50. Gallimore only had 1 assisted tackle. Isaiah Simmons had 3 solo tackles, and Montez Sweat had 3 solos and 1 pass deflection. So depending on how pass deflections are scored in your league, maybe that helped a little bit more. So those are my 3 losses, I guess. CJ Mosley had 7 solo and 4 assisted. Jordan Brooks had 10 solo and 2 assisted. And Terrell Edmonds had 5 solo and 1 assisted. But like I said, with that one, I wanted to take Minka, but I didn't want to cheat. Minka had the pick 6 at the beginning of the game. But to get 5 solo tackles and 1 assisted tackle out of Terrell Edmonds is still good. So I'm taking those as W's. How'd you do on yours?
I actually ended up going 5 for 6, which I was pleasantly surprised.
Oh, Mr. Show Off here.
Well, I'll let you know. Devin White, 8 tackles, 2 sacks, 1 pass defense. 35 points, was projected 21. Great output. Levante David, 6 tackles, 1 tackle for loss, 1 pass defended. He got 15 points. He was projected 15 as well. Those two together projected 38. Scored 49. So, works for me. Jeremy Chin, I had him. He had 7 tackles, 12 points. He was projected 14, so it was a little bit less by basically just 1 tackle than I was expecting. I was expecting about anywhere from 8 to 12. But Buda Baker made up for it with his 13 tackles. He had 20 points. He was expected to get 17. Together, they were projected 32, and they got 32. And then I picked Bud Dupree because Harold Landry had torn his ACL for the season, and he had 1 tackle, which was a tackle for loss, 1 QB hit, 1 fumble recovery, and 1 sack. So 14 points when he was projected, a little bit under 11. And Marcus Davenport was my really big loss. All he had was 1 tackle, 2 points, projected 12 for the Saints.
So, like I said, this week it's only going to be a little bit different. We had some kind of chalky picks last week. We're gonna, as the season goes on, we're gonna try to get more players that maybe are floating around out there on waivers right now, or some just under the radar guys. So, Jordan, why don't we kick it off with you? We'll go Jordan, Hassan, me in a round table order, one at a time. So, your first DL, Jordan, who do you got?
So my first one is Yetur Gross-Matos of the Panthers against the Giants. The Giants, even though Danny Dimes played pretty well last week, still allowed a 58.5% pressure percentage, which is very bad. So I expect him to have some opportunities to get to the quarterback. You mix that with the fact that with a struggling and a young offensive line, the Giants run the ball quite a bit, so I have some opportunities to get in the backfield, get some tackles for loss, get some tackles at the line of scrimmage. So Yetur Gross-Matos is my first.
I like that. I was looking into the Panthers for mine because I wanted to attack going after Daniel Jones, but I ended up with 2 other guys. Hassan, who's your first DL?
I actually got Justin Houston from the Ravens, and he had a great debut, albeit it was against the New York Jets. But for a guy who's in year 13 to put those kind of numbers up was great. And, the Dolphins' offensive line is still definitely a work in progress. You could tell by Chase Edmonds just going 12 for 25, not even getting 30 yards on 12 carries. So I think Houston can get in the backfield, and I think he could get 1 for 2 tackles for loss. I think maybe he could get Tua for a QB hit or 2, and maybe half a sack to a sack. And I think he could also he had 3 tackles, so I think he could get about 2 or 3 again. So, he's definitely, I searched through a lot of IDP deep leagues. He's definitely available everywhere.
Yeah, just it's tough going against Tua because with those weapons, he's going to get the ball out quick. But if you could get home to him, get some points, I like that pick there. Grady Jarrett for me of the Falcons going up against the Rams. I got to go. I mean, Stafford currently leads the league in getting sacked, well tied. So I got to go back to him. The OL did not look good at all. I mean, granted, the Bills' front 7 is pretty old, front 6, I guess, because they only play 2 linebackers. They're pretty solid up there. But Grady Jarrett, he's been around the league for a few years, and he knows how to get to the quarterback. He knows how to stuff the middle of the line. He had 1.5 sacks last week against Jameis Winston. I think he could get home again. He could sneak up the middle. He could come around the edge. He could play from all different spots of the line. I think he's in for another big game this week. I don't think the Rams really improved that offensive line from last Thursday to now. So I think he can get to Stafford another 1.5 times this week too.
Yeah, I'll say that it's probably going to be a common occurrence this season that you'll be able to stream defensive linemen against the Rams line. So
perfect. Who's your next guy
That
you got?
Whitworth loss is looking really bad right now. And
You
I
need to
know it was
call
just
him up.
week 1, but he's still playing very well at his age.
Who you got for
He
your
was-
next DL, Jordan?
Well, I had two guys I went back and forth on, so maybe I'll say both of them and just go with the guy that plays better next week. One is I had Chandler Jones, who is probably one of the most underrated pass rushers of our entire generation, in my opinion. Maybe I'm biased because he's from my hometown, but he's going against the Cardinals this weekend. The Cardinals have had Kyler Murray running absolutely all around the place over the last year plus now. It shined through late last season. That offensive line really struggled. They had the worst performance according to pressure percentage in week 1 last week, so that trend continues. So I am looking for Chandler Jones to take advantage of that. He'll be my official number 2. I did also have Jerry Hughes against the Broncos.
Hughes had a great game last week too. He looks like he's going to be good out there.
I really like that pick with Jerry Hughes. I really do.
Who do you got, Hassan? Who's your number 2?
All right, I got Boogie Basham. I know you'll love this for that. Yeah, he scored 21 on a 7 projection, and he faces one of, I would say, a bottom 5 O-line this week in Tennessee. And Tennessee last year was top 5 in giving up sacks, and their offensive line only got worse with losing Roger Saffold this year. So I definitely think, Basham last week, he had 1 sack, 2 QB hits, 1 pick, 1 pass defense, and 2 tackles. I think he could achieve all of those again, except the interception. Those are very hard to come by for, the D lineman, of course. So, but I feel like he could get at least one of those in every other category. And I know, the Bills, they love to rotate their whole entire rotation. What is it? Eight players basically get about 70 snaps, 69 snaps. Essentially, that's about it. So he'll be in there and he'll be fresh. And, there's going to be other guys that defensive coordinators are going to focus on more than just Basham game planning. So that's who I got.
Yeah. And I don't know if you have the percentages in front of you, but he's a guy of all the guys that we mentioned. He might still be out there. So if you're looking for a last minute guy on your DL to plug in there, he's one that he plays Monday night too. So he's a solid late game flex if you need to for going into Monday night. My other guy is Michael Dogby on the opposite side of your Chandler Jones. He plays for the Cardinals, going up against the Raiders. He's that edge rusher for the Cardinals, kind of playing in that J.J. Watt role while J.J. Watt is out. He didn't really have a ton of pressure last week, but like I said, we already talked about it. Mahomes, you're not really getting to Mahomes, no matter who you are. He just doesn't go down. He makes magic with the football. So I like him here because Derek Carr last week was under a ton of pressure. Now, obviously, the Cardinals defense isn't the Chargers defense, but Carr was under a ton of pressure. The Chargers were able to sack him 5 times, force him to throw 3 interceptions. So I can kind of see Dogby coming off the edge, maybe getting to Carr this week too, maybe forcing him into an interception, which he doesn't necessarily get any points for that if you're forcing the pick. But if you could get to him, get him down on the ground, 5 sacks, like I said, he was the second most sacked guy. Well, tied for. There's another guy tied with Stafford for first with 7, and then Carr is second at 5. So I could see him possibly getting a Carr for a sack or 2 this week. Jordan, your first linebacker, who do you got?
All right, my homer pick of the night. My first linebacker is Ernest Jones, who had a pretty nice debut for the 2022 season. Going up against Atlanta this week, Atlanta was tied for second rush attempts, so there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for tackles for Ernest Jones. The other thing that Ernest Jones does quite a bit is play coverage. He was targeted 4 times last week. He only allowed 5 yards after the catch total, so he tends to lock guys down when they do catch the ball around him. So I think he may be on Kyle Pitts a little bit, unfortunately, but I think there's going to be opportunities in coverage for him as well as in the rushing game.
All right, I like that. We did mention him last week too, playing off the Thursday night game. So he was definitely a guy to look out for. Hassan, who do you got?
All right, I got Zaire Franklin of the Colts, who's filling in for Shaq Leonard, and he's starting at middle linebacker. He played 100% of snaps last week. He had 8 tackles, got a solid 14 points. Expect him to be out there again a lot this week. And we know how much Doug Peterson loves to throw the ball. I mean, they were in a close football game the whole game, and he threw it 42 times. So he's done that with Wentz. He's done with that with Foles. He's trying to do it with T-Law now. So definitely going to be a lot of opportunity there for him.
Yeah, especially with the kind of pass catches that they got. You got 3 guys between out of the backfield and the tight end with Evan Ingram that he could just be all over the field and maybe get some pass deflections, get a couple tackles on Robinson or ETN. That's going to be fun to watch. Mine is my homer pick. It's Matt Milano going up against the Titans Monday night. He played 98% of the snaps in week 1, along with Tremaine Edmonds. The Bills kind of run just a 2 linebacker set for the most part, 4 down linemen, 2 linebackers, and then 5 DBs. So Matt Milano is just kind of, he basically has half the field to cover while Edmonds has the other. Milano is the better of the 2 in pass coverage. Not necessarily a dominant tight end, but Austin Hooper is pretty athletic. Tannehill is a guy that does like to throw to his tight end. I was saying Mariota because they had him. Tannehill's a guy that likes to throw to the tight end, even though Austin Hooper didn't do too much of last week. He's still getting into the system. Austin Hooper he's a good tight end. He was a guy that I took a lot of chances on late in drafts as well as far as my offensive guys go. The run-heavy offense of the Titans could lead to some tackles too from Milano. Derrick Henry just going through the middle, going to the outside. They're going to need a couple guys to take him down. He's not a guy that you could take down by yourself. So I like Milano in that spot. Jordan, number 2.
My second one is Jermaine Pratt against the Dallas Cowboys. I think for a lot of the Cincinnati defenders this week, it's going to kind of be a perfect storm of Dak being out, an offensive line that's struggling, a team that's probably going to be a little more run heavy with Dak out, so more opportunities for tackles there. Logan Wilson tends to get a lot of the love in Cincinnati, and rightfully so. He had 100 tackles last year, but Jermaine Pratt still had 91, kind of has played second fiddle there a little bit, but I think he's a nice under-the-radar play this week.
Think he's going to get a nice Cooper pass rush going on out there?
Something like that.
What do you got, Hassan?
You do need a drum like that.
Yeah, I got to get a soundboard.
I got Austin Calitro from the Giants, and he had 4 tackles, and 2 of them were TFLs on Derrick Henry. So you can see with Tennessee, even when you have that Mack truck back there, now with their offensive line so bad, people are still getting to him in the backfield now. His yards per carry have gone down from 5.5 to hovering around like 4.2 about the last 12 games since their O-line got very bad. So, they're going to play another young offense, another bad, I wouldn't say bad, but they're a very young offensive line in Carolina that's going to take time to gel, and you could tell early by Baker was getting pressured all over the place. And obviously, that has a lot to do with Myles Garrett, because Myles Garrett is Myles Garrett in general. But, with Leonard Williams coming off the edge, Dexter Lawrence up in the interior, you're going to have to focus on those 2. And Calitro got 10 points last week, and that's a very deep stream, very deep sleeper that's still available anywhere you look.
Is that the Blake Martinez replacement, essentially?
It is the Blake Martinez replacement, yes, sir.
Perfect. So if you lost Blake Martinez late into the preseason because he got cut, definitely, if you might still be out there, go out there and grab him. My linebacker 2 is going to be Trayvon Walker of the Jags going up against the Colts. Going back to the rookie here, he had an excellent debut. He had a sack, he had an interception, handful of tackles. I think he had 4 tackles. The Colts were tied for the second most in rush attempts. I think the Browns and the Eagles were first with 39 total as a team. The Colts and another team were second at 38. So that's plenty of opportunities for getting to Jonathan Taylor, for Nyheim Hines out of the backfield to get tackles in space and cover him. There's question marks around Michael Pittman right now. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? If he doesn't play, that's even more opportunities going to Jonathan Taylor and Nyheim Hines. Getting to that old man, Matt Ryan back there should not be that tough either, even though the Colts offensive line is one of the better ones out of the ones that we've talked about so far. He doesn't have a lot of wheels, so should be able to get home for maybe a sack. I don't know if he's going to get an interception again. It's tough to predict the interceptions, but they like to use him. They're going to use him a lot. Number 1 overall pick. Got a good matchup there. Defensive backs, Jordan, who do you got?
All right, my first one is Adrian Amos versus the Chicago Bears. Played 100% of the snaps last week against Chicago. He's going to have an opportunity for a lot of tackles with Justin Fields running the ball and Dave Montgomery and Khalil Herbert and company. That offensive line has also been not great. And they've been using him to blitz quite a bit. They did it in week 1. Did it towards the end of last season, so I expect them to get some tackles for loss, maybe some potential for a sack as well, but I like the matchup against the Bears.
All right. Yeah, I was looking into that game too. I don't know how much necessarily Fields is going to drop back to pass. I know, yeah, he does run, so I went a different direction, but yeah, I like that one too a lot. Hassan?
I got Adoree Jackson, again, another Giant here. It's interesting to me that I'm picking Giants as IDP players. Years past, it's probably not a thing. But yeah, he had 6 tackles last week versus, run heavy team that ended up throwing the ball about 33 times and ended up running the ball about 27 times. And that's usually how Tennessee goes anyway, 50-50. And again, they're playing, I would say, another kind of 50-50 run team with CMC healthy. if he's able to do that against Tennessee, I feel like he'll easily be able to replicate that versus Carolina. And that's kind of it, just short and sweet. You know, if he can do it against, that's very, very similar types of teams with very similar types of offensive lines, offenses, just, I think he'll do it again. You know, he'll be on DJ Moore most likely a lot. He came up a couple of times for tackles last week as well on shorter passes to the running back. So I think he'll be able to do it. And we know CMC gets loose a lot, you know, for the catches out of the backfield. So, and Dory's very quick. So
I think that game's going to be a decent game too. Like, it might be on paper, might be the grossest game to look at, but I think you got two teams that are trying to build and get better with, I mean, Matt Rule's not a new coach. He's a couple years in, but Dable, his first year. And I think that's going to be not a great game, but I think it's going to be a decent game. I mean, you got offensive power on both sides of the ball, and everything's still fairly new for both people, and it's going to be fun. My first defensive back I'm going with another rookie, Jalen Petrie for the Texans. And this is a little bit of a cheat because I do have him on my top 25. I think I had him coming in at 25. I was in charge of the defensive backs this week, so I didn't want to go with a player on any of our 25 rankings list, but I just had to go with him. And he might not even be the best safety on his team. I mean, Jonathan Owens too is out there, so that's I guess I could have went with him too. But last week, Monday night, we saw Russ Wilson. He wasn't. They really couldn't get a lot going. Now, they could have won that game aside from those 2 fumbles inside the 5-yard line. Definitely could have had a different result, but he definitely came. Well, not him, but the whole offense came out flat against the Seahawks aside from a couple splash plays. I think that's going to change this week. We're going to see a little bit more out of the Denver Broncos offense, which means we're going to see a little bit more out of the Texans defense being on the field. I want all kinds of different defensive backs from the Texans just going around, because Russ, I don't think he's going to come out and be flat 2 games in a row. So I want Jalen Petrie, I want Jonathan Owens, I want to be able to play those guys, because I want Russ to go take his $250 million or whatever he's making and throw the ball to all of his weapons, and I want my defensive backs to make those tackles. I don't think Russ is going to throw many or even any interceptions. He's not really a turnover machine, but with the ball just going all over the field, I could see Petrie picking up double-digit tackles again, like he did last week. Who do you got number 2, Jordan?
My official one, I have 2 again, but I'll have an official and unofficial one. I'm just trying to make up for last week. That's all.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
So my official one is going to be Nick
Can't
Cross
lose
again.
this way.
No, well, that's the point. If I just start listing off 10 guys, a few of them have to hit. But my first one's Nick Cross against the Jaguars, and I did want to highlight him a little bit as well. He rookie from the Colts. He actually is the youngest player in the NFL. He just turned 21 6 days ago, which is kind of insane to think about. A kind of random stat about Nick Cross from last week too. He actually led all safeties in the league in blitzes last week, so they're using him a lot kind of in the box to be a guy that's going to be used to stop the run. So I like him against the Jaguars. The Jaguars' young offensive line has struggled a little bit against blitz pickups. They're still a young team overall, and young teams tend to struggle with that. So Nick Cross is a guy I just wanted to highlight, and I do like the matchup against the Jaguars. The other guy I mentioned earlier, but if Cameron Curl is out this week, I do like Derek Forrest quite a bit against the Lions. Another guy that's going to have a lot of tackle opportunities there. And I'm interested to see how they use him in general, because, like I said, I was very impressed with him. He was all over the field last week. So.
All right, good. Son, who's your last defensive back?
All right, Jordan's gonna love this. I got Nick Scott of the Rams.
Nice.
And basically, I said, if he can record 7 tackles and a forced fumble versus the Super Bowl favorites, who only ended up running 45 plays compared to the average that NFL teams run, which is right about 60, he can definitely do obviously the forced fumble, the turnovers, that's a very hard thing week to week to predict. But in terms of tackles, I definitely think he can get anywhere from 7 to 10. And Atlanta, they had nearly 400 total yards of offense versus a very stingy Saints defense, and controlled time of possession in that game pretty much so by a lot, because they were running the ball so much. So Scott's going to have a lot of chances, definitely. And it could be over the middle passes, or it could be, Cordell Patterson had over 20 carries last week. I think Mariota and him had 35 carries together.
Yeah, they were up there with rush attempts too.
Yeah.
My last guy is going to be, it's a rare one, because I normally don't go with cornerbacks when I'm talking about defensive backs. I usually go safeties, but I'm going to go William Jackson of the Commanders. He's up against the Lions, kind of dipping into that secondary with you, Jordan. It's another game where I want to target the defensive backs. Jared Goff, he likes to throw the football. He's got pass catching options. I mean, when you think about Jared Goff and you think about the Lions, you don't think a lot of good things, but he's definitely got targets to throw it around to. Amon-Ra St. Brown, TJ Hawkinson, DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, DJ Chark. So I think for the most part, Jackson is probably going to see a lot of Amon-Ra, who happens to be, until Jameson Williams get there, he's going to be Jared Goff's favorite target. So we'll be able to see a good matchup there. Jackson led the Commanders in tackles last week with 9. And like I said, I can see him getting close to 10 again, just going up against not just Amon-Ra, but maybe getting Hawkinson on the edge or getting DeAndre Swift out of the backfield, just coming up and helping his teammates make some tackles there. So I got William Jackson of the Commanders. All right, that was I like that segment a lot. This is one that we're going to do every week. Basically give you anywhere between 12 to 18 players, or in Jordan's case, 12 to 56 players that you guys can use on any given week.
I'm just trying to provide value here, Jerry. That's all I'm trying to do. A bang for their free buck here.
It works, and we'll recap these next week, kind of see where we were on our. And for the most part, I kind of skimmed all the rankings too. I know for sure Petrie's in the rankings because I put him there. But did you guys pick any guys that are in your top 25s?
Nope.
I think I might have had one that was towards the back end of one of the lists, but definitely nobody that was high up.
All right, perfect. Yeah, so of the 20 guys that we gave you, 18 of them are not even on the top part of our rankings. So these are under the radar guys that if you need a last minute play, or I mean, maybe they're, for the most part, Milano might be available, Basham might be available, Dogby might be available. Some of these other guys, Petrie might have been picked up this week. The rookie Jackson, just off name value, he might be on a roster. Jarrett might be on a roster, but you might be able to find a handful of these guys on your waivers. So if you want to go pick them up, stash them, or play them this week because they got good matchups. And then for our final segment of the night, we like to give you a defense special teams unit that we like. So with three of us here, we got three different ones that we not necessarily like, but just going into the week that might be available if you want to stream them. It is week 2 for the most part. You drafted a team that is that's either had 2 to 3 good matchups to start the season, so you probably already have your defense. You're probably not looking to the waiver wire right away, or a lot of the top defenses are playing weaker teams anyway, so they're probably already picked up. So this was a tough week to do, but I'll kick it off. I got the Seahawks, and with all that information said, they were pretty tough because they're probably not owned in many of your leagues, but they were able to hold the Denver Broncos to only 16 points. They going against the Broncos last week, I don't imagine anybody really had them playing unless you're in a super deep league, because you expected the Broncos to come out and put up a lot of points. So they're probably still there. They did lose Jamal Adams for the season, and even before the season started, their defense was suspect. I mean, you got Jordan Brooks back there, other guys stepping up, but it's like I said, they were able to hold Denver to 16 points at home. Now they travel to San Francisco, which isn't a bad matchup if you think about it. They're missing George Kittle, missing Elijah Mitchell. Trey Lance is still, I mean, we're still kind of on the fence about, is he good, is he not? Last week was kind of a fluke because they played in a monsoon. But I threw this team out there because I like the matchup and the injuries that's 49ers have, but I might go through and look at all of my DSTs that I got and see if there's one that I could replace Seattle with and just throw them out there as a flyer. And that's who I'm going with, and that's who I'm sticking with. Hassan, you want to go next?
Another great NFC West matchup, and those are always great no matter who's playing each other. So definitely.
Could be low scoring, yeah. I mean, could be a shootout, but a lot. I mean, you could get another 17-16 game out of these two teams.
Exactly. It could be 17-13, anything like that. Very, very easily. Seen many of those in the Pete Carroll, Kyle Shanahan era for these two teams.
All right, who do you got for yours, Hassan?
I got the Jacksonville Jaguars, and as Jerry mentioned earlier, this week it's very slim pickings on streamers just because, as you said, you drafted everybody, and week 2, a lot of the guys you drafted, a lot of the teams drafted, got great matchups. So I'm going to take Jaguars because literally against last 2 seasons against the Colts, they're 2-2, and the rest of the league, they're 1-29. Any semblance of success that they've had has been against the Indianapolis Colts. And they lost Miles Jack, but they replaced him with Foyesade Okolone, which at the end of the day, right now, it looks about equal. I think it could end up being a net positive, possibly. You never know when it comes to that. And then obviously getting Trayvon Walker, who, I mean, you can't ask for a better debut than 1 sack, 1 pick, few tackles, and then his pick literally leading directly to a touchdown just 2 plays later by James Robinson. That obvious and late in the or early in the fourth quarter. And then with it being Josh Allen's 4th year now, he's developing, so defensive coordinators are planning for him more, which, you know what I mean? It's going to leave, obviously, Trayvon Walker and Josh Allen are going to be game planned for a lot, but it's going to leave other guys open, and Foyesade is just going to make tackles everywhere. And week 18 last year, we all remember it. We all do. It was Jacksonville's only good win of the season. I remember specifically 4th and goal inside the 3-yard line at least 2 times. Jonathan Taylor, 2021 rushing leader, stuffed 2 times in the 26-14 loss. And that was the difference between getting in the playoffs and not for the Colts. And just for some reason, Frank Reich can't seem to figure these guys out. And I think that continues on, especially with the way that they struggled against Houston in week 1 as well.
Yep, and that was definitely the Jags' only good win last year. They did not have another one. Jordan, who do you got?
So I had the luxury of having the last choice because you guys put in your notes before me. So I went with the New York Jets, who I actually think could be sneakier than people think. They're only 2% owned on Yahoo right now. But last week, if you look at the Jets defensively, honestly, they played pretty well. They only allowed the Ravens to rush for 63 yards, which was the 3rd fewest in week 1, and 3 yards a carry. I mean, against one of the most potent rushing attacks in all of football, I'd say that's a big win for the Jets defense overall. If they're able to replicate that against the Browns this week and shut down Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, you know, maybe they force Jacoby Brissett into making some mistakes, you know, keep the Browns offense from moving the ball. So I'll be kind of interested to see if that's a trend, if this is a good rushing defense this year. But if they play like they did last week, I don't think there's any reason that they can't be effective this week.
All right. So just to break it down, we got the Seahawks, the Jags. Well, Seahawks versus San Francisco, the Jags going up against the Colts, and the Jets versus the Browns. If you want to look ahead to week 3, the Seahawks win because they go up against the Falcons, where the Jags have the Chargers and the Jets have the Bengals. So yeah. So if you're looking to stash somebody of these 3 to go into the following week, it would probably be the Seahawks with their matchup.
How far do you want to go out, Jerry? You want to start looking at fantasy playoff schedules?
Yeah, let's see. Stash the Jets. They might play the Patriots around then.
Honestly, that was a very surprising game, Baltimore and the Jets, with Lamar's 3 touchdown passes all being very long touchdown passes and them barely running for anything. That just was not like a Greg Roman offense whatsoever. It was very interesting.
Well, he made us Bateman owners a little bit happy with that 3rd touchdown from him.
Yeah, that saved his game.
Duvernay was a nice waiver pickup this past week. And the Jets scoring their touchdown allowed Dallas to be the only team last week without a touchdown. So that also works out.
Everybody wins, really.
Yeah, exactly. When
everybody wins when Dallas is the lowest on any stat besides losses, everybody wins.
Perfect. All right. So I believe that is everything for this week. We had an excellent game on Thursday night. We got a nice full slate, a little light slate on Sunday because there are 2 Monday night games, Bills, Titans, and then Eagles and Vikings. So everybody else outside of those 6 teams that played are playing on Sunday. It's going to be the Sunday night game is a little meh. I mean, you got the Bears and the Packers. Obviously, I'm going to watch it, but I don't know how excited I am going to be about it.
You should be.
We are on the IDP pod, so there might be a lot of defense in that game. So that's definitely something to look forward to. Other than that,
Yep.
check us out on our new Twitter, Cover 0 GF2. That's Cover ZERO GF2. I got my own personal Twitter at JERRYWILKE FM. So it's Jerry Wilkie FM. Jordan, you want to hit him with yours?
Yeah, mine is at Dr. DR Fantasy Sports.
Dr. DR Fantasy Sports, or Dr. Fantasy Sports, it's DR Fantasy Sports. And then Hassan, what's yours?
Mine is, I'm going to explain it like last week. It's KAAZEME. On Twitter, it's going to be Hassan Raza Kazmi on Facebook, and then Hassan.R.Kazmi on Instagram.
Perfect. So you guys have a good week too. Hopefully, if you lost last week, you could even up your record. If you won last week, hopefully keep it going strong. Start off the season 2-0. And until next Saturday,